Hey, what's up guys? Guardian here, coming to you guys with a update to Altmile finally. So yeah, I completely forgot about doing an update for this deck this year. Um Altmile did get support, but it came from the V clan selection, which was early 2021. And yeah. I was playing this deck quite a bit though this year. Basically during the hiatus of V series content on the channel with V Premium. I was basically focusing a lot on Overdress at the time, and yeah, I didn't really do V Premium stuff until recently with the V Clan collection. So yeah, a commenter actually pointed this out on a community post that I made like the other day, I think, and I thought to myself, ah man, I had some plans to do some like Overdress content very soon, but I didn't really know when I could fit this deck in. So I thought, you know what? This deck profile has been long overdue, and I kind of feel like I should at least do the deck profile now whilst I can. And this was the deck that I was playing like half a year ago, essentially. So yeah, the only new addition to this deck was the Heal Guardians. So this deck is pretty much what I was playing with back then, with the addition of those included from the V Clan collection. So yeah, let's get stuck into the deck, and I'll show you guys what I'm playing. All right. So the main grade 3, of course, for Altmile is the big Altmile himself, Aerial Divine Knight Altmile. So his skills are Continuous Vanguard. If you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, all of your grade 2 units get 10,000 power and 5,000 shield. And then if your soul has a card with Altmile in the card name, those units get critical +1. So really important to get an Altmile in the soul. The 10,000 power and shield is just a passive effect that you'll get normally, but the extra Altmile and soul will give you that critical. And that's kind of where this deck shines, is that it's a very crit heavy deck. Usually when you go for the force marker, we're going to go with the force 2, just because threatening 3 crit on your attacks is just really, really lethal. And also one of the downsides with Altmile on his own is that he himself will only deal 1 damage. You can't really find an alternative way to give him a critical unless you like ride him on top of Ashley. But outside of that, we can just go for the Force 2 and then put it on the Vanguard, so that our Vanguard, as well as our rear guards, are all going to have crit pressure on them, which is really, really good. So that's pretty cool there. And then the second skill is Vanguard once per turn, act, you can Counterblast and Soul Blast 1 to call up to 1 grade 2 each from your deck and your drop zone to Rearguard Circle. So this is really, really good. So recursion from the drop zone and calling 1 from the deck. Yeah, you just get 2 cards for a Counterblast and a Soul Blast, really, really good. Of course, Grid 2 focus, so Altmile is typically very Grid 2 heavy, and we want to focus more on the Grade 2 aspect of the deck. So that is the main grade 3 of the deck, the main Vanguard, so we're focusing around him. But because of that shield and power increase, we can definitely get a lot of pressure going in this deck. So the next grade 3 is going to be the 2 additional copies of Altmile, but this is the Blue Sky Knight Altmile from the trial deck. The only reason for playing this really is that it's an extra Altmile name. We have Edith, so Edith is able to, fetch Altmiles from the top 7, so increasing the number of Altmile names in the deck will increase those percentage chances of happening. But outside of that, Altmile's okay. He gets 15k power on the Rearguard or Vanguard Circle. Preferably don't want to ride this one, not really that good. But yeah, the 2 additional copies of these are just helpful for the Altmile name, so that we can get it into the soul for the Aerial Divine Knight, so that we can get the crits on the Rearguard to get that pressure going and just get his skill rolling, essentially. So 2 copies of him, and then the last grade 3 of the deck. Usually I play 4 of these in most of my Royal Paladin decks, but I decided to only go for 3 copies of Ashley this time. When I was playing 4 of this initially, it was good. But I found myself a lot of the time getting clogged with grade 3s in my hand. And when you're a grade 2 centric deck, and your defensive value with the shield buff comes for grade 2s, kind of awkward when your hand's full of grade 3s, and you kind of have to rely more heavily on intercepting with your rear guards, and yeah, it gets a bit awkward. So I decided to drop Ashley down to 3. I still feel like she's okay at 3. You can put it to 4 if you want to, but I felt a bit more comfortable just having her as 3, basically as an attack extender, if I want to go for more of a multi-attack turn, instead of just big numbers, big crits, essentially. But she does synergize very well with the deck, of course, and she can call out a grade 2 Jewel Knight from our deck. which can then get the benefits of the Aerial Divine Knight and then go critical, get the power as well. So that's really cool. But yeah, just 3 copies of Ashley's I felt like was fine. The extra crit skill can actually be pretty good as well, since Altmile will give an additional critical to the grade 2s, but then you could then use the counterblast skill for Ashley to give him another crit. So yeah, crits can get pretty nutty in this deck, I have to say. So yeah, 3 copies of Ashley is what I decided to go with, but you can also go with 4 if you want to. Alright, so next with the grade 2s, we are going to be playing the 4 copies of the grade 2 Jewel Knight, which is Lily. This is just fantastic for Altmile. The thing I like most about it is that it's a way of soul charging very reliably. One of the issues Altmile had in the past was getting a soul charging engine somewhat to basically use Altmile skill every turn, since it's kind of a lot that you got to put in, since it's a CB and a Soul Blast. But the Lily really does fix that issue, since you can actually be more flexible with your resources now and your soul to use skills like Ashley, which is a Soul Blast of 2. But because we have recursion with the Lily and searchability with this as well, being a grade 2 and also being a Jewel Knight with the Ashley, it just synergizes really, really well with Altmile. So yeah, and then the on-place skill to get the 10,000 power, that can come in pretty handy as well. If you have one of these left on the field, you could like call an Ashley on top of it to get an extra 10k, do an attack with her, and then go for an extra multi-attack by calling another Jewel Knight from the deck. Yeah, it can just roll really, really well in the deck overall. So definitely play 4 copies of this. Really, really good grade 2 for Altmile. Alright, and then another good grade 2 for Altmile, which came out in the trial deck for him, which was 3 copies of Liverot. Still a good card. There will be occasions where your opponent will try and counterblast deny you, which we do have players in the deck that can counterplay that. But Liverot's pretty cool in the fact that if we don't have CB, we can just Soul Blast instead to call a grade 2 from the deck. This is pretty nice. Liverot doesn't really do too much in the front row. He's mainly just a recruiter to go get your better grade 2s that actually do something in the front row, like the Lily, for example. But we do also have some other toolbox cards that we can go search, and yeah, this deck's a grade 2 game can actually be really, really good. Like when you ride your grade 2 for the turn, if you see Liverots and other pieces, you can actually just call out of field and just bash your opponent and do some really good rush plays as well. So Liverot, solid card, but only playing 3 of them just because of deck space reasons. Right, so the next grade 2 is going to be the 2 copies of the Starlight Violinist. 2 of these I felt like was okay. Didn't really feel like I needed more of this. If you're playing in an environment where there's a lot of control decks around you, maybe play 3 of this. But I feel like 2 is a good solid number to start with. But yeah, this card basically will give your grade 2s the ability to boost and also intercept from the back row. But you do need to have no face-up damage in the damage zone, which of course is what Altmile's all about. So that is fine. But yeah, the card's very searchable, recyclable as well because of the Jewel Knight engine as well. So that's pretty cool. And actually synergizes well with another grade 2 play, which we'll go into very soon. So 2 copies of him. So then we have a few one-offs in the deck, a fair few actually. But each of these have their own place and actually provide the deck some quite nice toolbox accessibility when it comes to the grade 2s. So the first one that we're playing is the 1 copy of Hope Song Angel. This basically counterblasts to go search for the Starlight Violinist from your deck. But like I said, you can always recycle it and then search it that way. So this card will never really be dead. But also it's just a really good extender to fill up the field on the grade 2 turn and further. So that's really, really nice. And then next we're playing the 1 copy of Lamric. This card is a nice reliability factor to basically eat your counterblast. So if you're struggling to find ways to eat all of your counterblasts up so that you can get all of it face down for Altmile and things like the Starlight Violinist, this is a nice reliability just because it can easily be searched and you can just eat all of your counterblasts with its skill since it's not a once per turn. And sometimes that power can actually be really scary. You know, this card in conjunction with Altmile can just get really, really big and can either be a really good booster or attacker. And then with multiple crits on it, it could just end a game randomly. So not too bad. I feel like it's a nice one-off just for the toolbox. So 1 copy of Lamric. And then I'm playing the 1 copy of Blasterblade. I decided to put Blasterblade in the deck just because I like the fact that the 1 copy of this does give the deck Retire, which is something that Royals don't really do too much. But yeah, by sticking the one copy of this, if there are any if there's any problematic units that the opponent has in their field that we really don't want to deal with, we also have the option to go for this and yeah, get that retire off. And also, if you are lucky, sometimes you might have a game where you might ride the Blaster Blade and then call out a field, and then you can get that crit pressure from his Vanguard skill. So that's pretty cool as well. It's not too reliable, but it's a thing that you can do. And then another one of is the one copy of Degnund. So this card is one of the ways that we can counterplay Counterblast Deny. So basically, at the beginning of your main phase, if this unit will gain 5,000 power until the end of the turn, and then if you have no face-it card in your damage zone, countercharge 1. So this will basically enable you to at least that turn get off the Altmile skill, which is pretty much all you can really ask for, really, because yeah, getting 2 units from his skill is really, really powerful. So having this as a deck is a nice reliability factor to get that countercharge, just so that you're not stuck that turn basically without doing anything. But like I said with Liverot, Liverot is also a nice counterplay, since if you are counterblast denied, you can always Soul Blast instead to go search for more units. So that is a nice alternative that you can do as well. So this is just another option to counterplay the CB deny basically. And then the final grade 2 is going to be the one Die Connect Dragon. Really, really good card, just because it's basically a buffed up Pongal. So when it's placed on rear, if you have another unit in the same column as it, you soul charge, and then if you soul charge a trigger, it gets 10k. So really good. It's a grade 2, obviously, so it'll get big. And yeah, just on-demand soul charge is really, really handy to have. It's searchable, obviously, so yeah, I think that's a really nice grade 2 to have in the deck. So 1 copy. Alright, so that is the abundance of the absolute bundle of grade 2 one-offs that we have, but because it's a grade 2 toolbox deck, we can kind of get away with it. Alright, so then going over the grade 1s, we have the one that I showed earlier and also at the start of the video, and the one that I forgot to do an updated profile of, which is Edith. So Edith is really nice because this card fixed a big issue with Altmile initially, which was it was a bit too slow in terms of getting the aggro going with the crit pressure. And this kind of fixes it. So when it's placed on Rearguard, you can still blast 1 to look at the top 7 cards of the deck. Choose up the 1 unit with Altmile in this card name and call it to the Rearguard circle in the same column as this unit. And then the second skill is Rearguard. At the end of the battle that it boosts a grade 3 Rearguard, you compare the cost of putting the boosted Rearguard into your soul, and then return this unit to your hand. So yeah, like I said, this fixes a big problem with the deck, which is getting the Altmile and the soul reliably and consistently. And Edith pretty much does that. It looks for the top 7 to look for one, calls at the rear, gives you a bit of rush in the early game as well, which is pretty good. And yeah, it puts the Altmile into your soul and then bounces it back to your hand. So it gets the grade 1 off of the field so that you can then call grade 2s there. And then you also have that 10k shield that you can just guard with whenever you feel like it. So really good consistency piece. Definitely a really good addition for the deck. Apologies for not doing the updated version of this deck when I should have, but now we have Edith on the channel finally. So it's late, but rather late than never, I guess. So yeah, 4 copies of Edith. Really, really good card for the deck. Alright, and I should point out actually, shout out to Richard from Nexus Course, but this was actually someone I wasn't too aware of. But apparently with the way that Ashley and Edith work is that if you boost an Ashley with Edith, you can actually put the Ashley into your soul and then still trigger the ability, since both of these effects activate at the end of the battle. So it doesn't matter if the Ashley gets sucked into the soul or not. Basically, if you put it into the soul, you can still resolve the effect by paying the Soul Blast too. So that was an interesting thing I found out. So yeah, thank you to Richard for pointing that out, since I wasn't aware of that. So that's pretty cool that you can do that. So yeah, that is Edith. So moving on, we have the remaining grade 1s of the deck, which is 3 copies of Cecilius. So this is our grade 3 searcher, which is important since we want to get to Aerial as consistently as we can. So just playing the 3 of this, since I did want to play some other grade 1s, which I thought were decent to have as well, which were the 3 copies of Morvidus, which is the Dual Knight grade 1. Yeah, it's pretty good because it's a good ride target. So when another unit is placed on its circle, you're going to draw a card. So drawing cards is of course good since we can see more pieces, see them more reliably. But also it just synergizes well in the deck anyway, since if you want to put a grade 2 on top of her, you don't minus yourself, and you're actually drawing a card instead to put a grade 2 down, which will be better since it'll get the buff from Altmile. So that's also pretty cool. And also it's a counterblast as well, so it's like it's another form of CB in the deck that you can use to help eat up your damage essentially. So that's also pretty cool. So 3 copies of her. Alright, so for the grade 0s, for the starter, we are of course playing the Milius. Shout out to my friend Chris. He gave me this foil version of Milius that he so happened to have. So thank you to him. But yeah, Milius for the starter, just because it's the Altmile one from back in the day. And then for the triggers, we're just keeping it simple with the 4 crit, the 4 more crit with Flogel, and then we're doing the 4 draw PG and the brand new Heal Guardian from the V-Clan collection. Yeah, don't really feel like I need to change this too much. You could play the crit Sentinel over the 4 copies of the draw PG, just because it does give you more crit pressure. But I do feel like the draw is nice, just so you can see pieces more reliably, and also the PG can come in handy, just to completely nullify an attack that's just too big. So yeah, and also I don't feel like the Heal Guardians are too much of a hindrance in this deck, just because since we do have the extra shield value on our grade 2s, we have quite a bit of defense in the deck anyway, so losing out on that 5k shield, in comparison to the 20k shields back in the day, isn't too much of a loss, and I do feel like these really help in the early game, especially going against an aggro deck. So yeah. But yeah, that's basically the updated Altmile deck. So once again, I apologize for this being really late. I should have did this earlier in the year, but I thought now would be better than never. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the updated Altmile deck. Drop down in the comment section below any changes you would do to the deck. This was this was the build I was playing with basically for like 3 or 4 months, and I just didn't profile it for some reason. So yeah. But since we are revisiting V-Series and V Premium a little bit more on the channel, yeah, do drop your advice in the comment section to see what you guys think. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. So, like always, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Look forward to more content on the channel very soon, and I will catch you guys in the next one. So like always, this is Guardian 205, signing out.